Okay, now we are.
The recording.
Let me go back to my window. Oh, where is the window? Here is the window. Recording, recording.
I'm going to admit everybody.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. We ran into a few technical difficulties here, but we're ready now. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's a month of service presentation of property taxes, exemptions, and payment options. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the a month of service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods. And joining us as presenting partners, we have the Harris Central Appraisal District and presenting on behalf of them, we have Ms. Mabel Menifee. Also with the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. Um, I'm sorry, we've got other people that are still being admitted. With the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, we have Ms. Vicky Tatsura, who's going to be presenting for you all as well today. But in addition to that, we also have the Earl Carl Institute, Texas Legal Services Center, Lone Star Legal Aid, and Houston Volunteer Lawyers that are also partners in the partnership. But just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, the eight partners that you see here, we all make up a month of service, and a month of service is a collaboration of all of us coming together on a monthly basis and offering a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to the community relative to asset building, asset protection, and the maintaining of generational wealth. We know that there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there that do not have access to a lot of information, to a lot of different resources. So we decided several years ago to collaborate in an effort to help bridge that gap for resources, and started doing these the workshops. We pretty much all service the same community and have similar goals in mind. So we wanted to create a larger impact and try to get as much information distributed as we possibly can to the community. So this particular presentation was one of those that was the more popular one, the most needed as well. The Harris Central Appraisal District and the tax office are here to provide you all with the information that you need about your property tax bill and the property taxes, how they're evaluated, and basically how you can help also reduce your property taxes if there's heirs that are living in the property. There's different exemptions and things like that that you can take advantage of that could help lower your tax bill. And this is definitely the presentation that you want to sit on to hear information about that. So this is your opportunity to ask whatever question it is that you have. We do ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can because we are on a public platform. We are also broadcasting live from our social media sites. So we want to try to protect your privacy as best as we possibly can. So we ask that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can so that your personal detail information is not getting out there for everybody to have access to. In addition to that, we also record the session. So a copy of the presentation will be sent out to you all so that you can go back to review again because there will be quite a bit of details that they get to go over. So we want to give you guys the opportunity to go back and watch that, and also to possibly share it with somebody else that may also find the information to be beneficial. So do know that you can ask questions. If you have some real specific questions or need real specific information as it relates to your particular circumstance. If you put the note in the chat, there will be somebody monitoring the chat and they can give you specific instruction of where to contact or who to contact for your more one-on-one personal kind of situation. So they can provide that information for you of how to get additional assistance if it's needed. Um, we'll get to the question and answers at the end of the presentation. If you are joining us on Zoom, please feel free to type your questions into the chat. If you are joining us on our social media platforms, please feel free to type your question into the comment section and I'll be monitoring that as well. I know that there were a few questions that were sent in advance, and I'll definitely make sure that those get addressed at the end of the presentation as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And we want to thank you guys for joining us this afternoon. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties that we had here today. And hopefully, we won't endure anymore. Someone tells me that every time we have these kind of disruptions, that means the devil's trying to get this information, trying to stop us from getting this information out to you guys. So it must be some good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. Ms. Vicky, we'll have you introduce first, and then Ms. Mabel will have you introduce, and then you can just move on into your presentation. So, Ms. Vicky?
Hi everyone. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone. My name is Vicky Fetsura, and I am with the Harris County Tax Office of Miss Annette Ramirez. I work in the Customer Service Department and the Property Tax Division.
Okay. And do you have someone else helping you in the chat, or no?
No,
Okay.
I'll just answer the
Okay.
questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Ms. Mabel.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mabel Menifee, and I'm with the Harris Central Appraisal District. I'm in the Communications Department, and I am so pleased to be here with you today and be a part of this learning platform. I also want to introduce my colleague, Tawana Nelson, who is a senior exemption specialist in our exemptions department, where we get a lot of questions about exemptions. That's one of the primary duties of HCAT, is administering those. And so Tawana will be online to, if you've got questions you want to type into the chat while the presentation is going on, or will be available to answer those questions at the end of the presentations. So for right now, we're going to jump into some information about HCAT and about our processes. So if you'll just give me a moment to share my screen. All righty, and show and presenter view. How's that, Nia? Got it. 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
All
Yep. You're
righty.
good. You're getting good at this.
So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hopefully no more technical glitches today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the role of appraisal districts in the property tax process, and a little bit about how to protest your value, because that's something that as a homeowner, you have every right to do, and it's important that you know a little bit more about the process to kind of help you make a decision as to whether that's something you want to do. And then, of course, we're going to talk about exemptions, which are if you are living in your primary residence and you own and occupy that home, then certainly you want to make sure you're taking advantage of the exemptions that are available to you as a homeowner. So property taxes in Texas, let's just a little bit of background on that. Why do we even pay property taxes? They support some of the critical local services in your community, such as the schools and police and fire protection, the roads, potholes that sometimes don't get fixed quickly enough, are paid for by your property taxes, as well as the parks and community centers that we've all come to enjoy. Now, it's important to note also that property tax laws in the state of Texas do originate with the state legislature. Appraisal districts like HCAT are responsible for administering and carrying out the laws that are made through the state legislature. And our primary goal as a role of as a central appraisal district is to appraise all county property, whether that's residential, there's commercial apartments and things, agricultural, industrial, factories, and those big refineries that you see out along our urban landscape, as well as something called business personal property. We are required to do so at 100% of market value each year. And that value is based on the condition of that property as of January the 1st of each year. So again, in addition to administering exemptions, we do something called certifying the appraisal roll, which allows all of the taxing jurisdictions to set their rates accordingly. Now, one of the reasons that appraisal districts were created is that prior to the late 70s in Texas, all of the taxing jurisdictions, as I mentioned, some would be school districts, your county, your city, and some special districts, all of them had their own appraisal systems in place. And so you can imagine that caused a lot of confusion if the values are wrong and you needed to go and visit 3 or 4 different jurisdictions to get that information straightened out. Or in some cases, some may have been lower, others higher for various reasons. Well, central appraisal districts were established in each county in the state of Texas to provide that value and then provide that to the taxing jurisdictions, which then use that to calculate property taxes based on their rates. So one thing I want to point out in what I just said is that HCAT does not levy taxes, nor do we collect taxes. Our primary responsibility is to value the property. And then that information is used by the taxing jurisdictions based on whatever tax rates they set to calculate your tax bill. So that's one of the reasons appraisal districts were established, the primary reason, and try to keep that system fair. And then HCAT, like many other appraisal districts, we're overseen by a chief appraiser. You hear the term chief appraiser, it's sort of like the CEO, but much of the information that you're going to get anytime you get information from HCAT, it's usually going to be signed off. You'll see the signature of the chief appraiser. We do have a 9-member administrative board, 3 of which are elected by you. The appraisal calendar. I mentioned to you about January 1st being the date on which the condition of your property is appraised. May 15th is generally the protest deadline because those value notices that we send out each year typically go out in late March, early April, and you have until May the 15th. If you look at your value, you disagree with it, or something else is wrong, then you have the opportunity to file that protest. And filing that protest then gives you the right to work on getting that value changed or coming to some sort of solution with HCAD. If you fail to file that protest, then you've lost the right to do so for that taxable year. I mentioned May 15th as the date. However, sometimes those appraisal notices may go out a little bit later than, say, April 16th or so, or later. So you always have 30 days from the date of that notice, whichever one comes later, to file that protest. And then, of course, as part of the tax calendar, generally starting this month and early next month through the end of November is when the tax bills are mailed. You receive your bill, and then, of course, you have until January the 31st to pay the tax bill for that year. After that, beginning on February the 1st, those taxes do become delinquent. So HCAT appraisals, what we do in terms of required to be at 100% of the market value, and that's something that the state requires, and we are tested on that. Each year they conduct their own the state conducts its own market value study to ensure that we're in compliance with that mandate. How does HCAD conduct it? We can't go out and appraise each and every single property like a fee appraiser might do if you were trying to sell your property. We can use a process called mass appraisal. And that value for your property is derived from the sales of similar properties in your area. Now that's a formula. Those are the kinds of things that if you're more interested in you really want to participate in the process of protesting, I will tell you that beginning in each spring, as the value notices go out, we start a series of workshops that are basically geared toward information on how to protest, what our values might be based on. So a lot of specific information that you would get, and it's not delivered by me, it's going to be delivered by our valuation analysts as well as our senior appraisal staff, the folks who are actually doing that job. Will have a series of workshops, usually between late March and mid-May, just prior to the protest deadline. And those are always going to be posted on our websites. We're always looking for places. We either do them virtually, and we also try to do them in person at various spots throughout the county. So I'm just putting that out there. If you have a community that is interested in having a protest workshop, then feel free to contact us next year, usually around February or so, and we'll be happy to try and get you on the schedule. We are responsible here in Harris County for 1.9 million parcels. So those are the parcels that we appraise. And we also, believe it or not, my slide says over 500 taxing jurisdictions in Harris County. I recently heard that it's now a little bit over 600. With the county growing, you'll see different jurisdictions, MUD, special districts, water districts, etc., established. But we serve all of those. Depending on where you live, you typically may only pay to 4 or 5, if that many. But depending on where you live, they are different. So, we serve all of them. Another thing that's important to know that here in Texas, sales information, providing, disclosing how much you actually paid for a property is voluntary. Buyers or sellers do not have to provide that information. We work with as much information as we can get to value those properties. However, if you are a new homeowner, you typically, or planning to buy a home, you will typically receive a survey from us asking if you would provide that information so that we can better serve the community in terms of valuing property equitably. So what determines your property value? Typically, we say 7,000 neighborhoods. And this is one of those things that this kind of shows you what the things are that our appraisers will really dig deeper into as we get into those protest workshop series in the spring. But typically, just kind of a quick look at how your property value is determined. Homes are divided up into neighborhoods, and that doesn't necessarily mean the street, excuse me, the street behind you. If that property might be a little different, but it could be similar properties nearby that your value is based upon what those may have sold for. The condition of the property. Obviously, some properties that have been newly remodeled, recently remodeled, may go a little bit more than those that haven't. And again, the recent purchases, and of course, the amenities. If you have a swimming pool, that's going to add value, depending on the square footage, of course. Bottom line, however, is that if you are interested in protesting, you are the expert in determining what's wrong with your home, what you could and couldn't sell it for based on its condition. So that's one reason it's important to consider if protesting is something you want to do. This is just a quick look at that annual value notice that you get from us each year in the mail, typically, or you can opt to have it sent to you electronically on our website. Important to remember is that number up in the right-hand corner, that iFile number. That's the number that you can use whenever you want to file your protest, or you need some additional information about it in terms of when your hearing might be scheduled, that sort of thing. You can, as I said, conveniently file that protest online. And again, another thing that is important to remember, and I will say this again later on in the presentation, is that your protests are going to be based on the market value of your property. the market value being that value which HCAD determines each year. So on that notice, you do see your appraised value and your market value. So the appraised value is actually the amount on which your tax bill is going to be calculated. Now, that appraised value could be the same as the market value, particularly if that home has no no type of exemptions on it, and it's been protected by something called the 10% appraisal cap, which means in some markets, when property values are rising rapidly, and we've seen that recently in terms of them going up 15, 20, 25% in 1 year because they're a hot market and people want to buy property in that area. If you live in that area, you're going to be protected in as far as your property tax bill is concerned, because your value can never increase more than 10% in any given year, because you have an exemption in place. Now, the market value, the one that HCAD determines, is the value at which a property would sell for a willing buyer, would sell for to a willing buyer on the open market. In other words, how much someone is willing to pay for your property in one of those open market arm's length transactions. So it's HCAD's primary role to establish that. Now, I said I was going to repeat this again. It's important to remember when you file that protest that the protests are going to be based on the market value. However, your taxes are going to be calculated on the appraised value. So you may hear some folks say, well, I protested, but it didn't lower my taxes. Well, that's because even though you may have had a successful protest in terms of having your market value lowered, it did not fall lower than your appraised value, so your tax bill did not change. It gives you a leg up perhaps on the following year, because you start out with a lower value, but it's important to remember that your protests are going to be based on that market value. That is what you are protesting, not your appraised value. So again, we were talking about the annual value notice. I did want to call to your attention that on page 2 of that value notice, there is some additional information that should be very helpful. You're going to see your previous year appraised value. It's also going to show that land value and that improvement value. One thing I want to mention about that, so your value is kind of split in terms of what the land is worth and what the improvement is worth. And they use a lot of terms in real estate that can sometimes be confusing to the average homeowner. So I want to point out that when we talk about improvement at HCAD and in terms of appraisal, the improvement is simply what's on top of the land. A lot of people tend to think, well, I didn't do any remodeling, I haven't done any improvements or anything to the home. In this parlance, improvement simply means what sits on top of the land. In most cases, that's going to be your home. And then the other thing that you can find on the back of that notice is the specific taxing jurisdictions that you pay to. And then you also will see what your current exemptions are. So it's a good thing to flip that annual value notice over to page 2 and take a look at that information as well. So when you are protesting, you're going to want to consider a couple of questions in terms of the market value, the equity, and what do you bring for your protest. Again, that information, this sort of evidence for your protest. And these things can be gone over, and you would have the opportunity to ask some additional questions during those during that protest workshops series. And actually, you would be able to get some more current information in terms of where the market is right then and there. So methods and types of protests. Very easy to protest. If you want to send in that paper form that comes with the annual value notice, you can do that. Or you can do it online through something called iFile. You can also do something called iSettle. You also have the opportunity if you choose not to do I settle, to come in and speak directly with an appraiser or evaluation analyst in something called an informal hearing. And that's an opportunity for you and HCAD to kind of get together to decide if an adjustment or change should be made to your value. You can do that. And then you also, if you're unable to reach an agreement with HCAD, or you just want to go straight to something called a formal hearing with the appraisal review board. Those can be done virtually and in person, as well as the informal hearing can also be done. You don't have to come in for that anymore. All of these can be done. You can elect to do them virtually, or you can elect to come out to our offices at Hollister and Tidwell and sit down with an appraisal review board panel or an appraiser. So some additional methods, if you aren't satisfied with the outcome of your formal hearing, you have other options, which include arbitration and legal proceedings. So, and then after you file a protest, you will get additional information from HCAD. Look for that. It's not like you would say, well, I filed a protest, so how do I even know what information you're using HCAD to rebuke it? So you will get that information, the evidence that we have used to value your property, and it's going to be contained in what we call an evidence packet, and it provides you with information about sales in your immediate neighborhoods, sales in your surrounding neighborhoods, interactive maps that are going to put the sales in perspective around your home. And then there are going to be some other additional points that'll help you understand how we valued the property the way HCAD did. And this is information that you will receive once you file the protest. Now, it's important to remember that because of the confidentiality laws of the state of Texas, we can only make that information available to you once you file the protest. Because, as I mentioned before, there is a non-disclosure law in the state of Texas that people do not have to provide that information. So we provide it once you file the protest. That's the legal trigger that gives us the opportunity to share the information with you that we have. So, and I mentioned the appraisal review board hearings, formal hearings. They generally last about 15 minutes. So once you get that evidence packet, you're going to kind of want to put your presentation together in terms of why you think your value is incorrect. And then, of course, you want to make sure you bring the copies of your evidence so that you can provide it to the appraiser and the review board panel members so they can all look at it and you can all be on the same page at the same time. Importantly, because you want to make your point, and generally you have a limited time to do it. So keep in mind that's going to be a little bit of extra homework once you file your protest. So now I want to talk about exemptions. That's an important piece of making sure that you save money, that you're not giving money away in terms of overpaying on your taxes because you have not filed for the exemptions that you're eligible for. So these are administered by HCAD. And basically what they do is exempt a portion of your property's value from taxation. And that is for your primary residence only. You can only receive exemptions on one piece of property, and that's your primary residence that you own as well as occupy. And so that, and then these exemptions are used by the taxing authorities to calculate your bills. So that's taken off. So let's talk about some of the most common residential ones. And hopefully everybody out there listening who's a homeowner already has these. So we're just going to go over them. If not, you may think of a neighbor that may not have them, and you're more than welcome to share this information. In fact, we encourage you to share that information with neighbors. So the most common ones are the general resident homestead exemption. Again, that's available to anyone living in their home occupying it and it is in their name. There is an additional one added to that called the over 65 exemption. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. The over 55 surviving spouse exemption. There are certain disabled veterans exemptions that are available to our veterans. And then there are other service-related exemptions as well. General resident homestead exemption, very simple to get. All you need is proof of ownership, and we request that that is your deed is recorded, obviously, and we also want you to send in a copy of your driver's license, and the address on the driver's license does need to match the address of the property. An important fact to remember as well is that if there's more than one person on the deed, married couple, you do need to send in the driver's license of both couples. That will avoid delay. That's probably, I'm sure Joanna can tell you, that is probably one of the most common things that can tend to delay your application is not sending in both driver's licenses. So the other thing you get, of course, I mentioned earlier that 10% appraisal increase cap, which protects you from rapidly increasing property values. And then, of course, there currently is a $100,000 school tax exemption that all school districts have to give you by state law. And that basically, that means that if your home is worth $300,000, your school taxes are going to be based on only $200,000 of that value. So that's how exemptions work. And again, other exemptions just really sort of depend on where you live and what may be offered by the various jurisdictions that you would pay taxes to. Your city, county, special districts, many of them have additional exemptions. You'll just need to check those out. If you're planning on moving into a specific area of town, you may want to check out what exemptions are being offered by the taxing jurisdictions in that area. So I also wanted to mention something called the immediate resident homestead exemption that just went into effect a few years ago. It used to be, remember I mentioned January the 1st as a magical date for HCAT in terms of valuing your property based on its condition on that date. Well, that used to also apply to exemptions. You were not able to, until you passed that January 1st date as an owner, you weren't able to apply for your exemptions. However, now you can apply for them as soon as you buy the home, and they will be prorated based on the month that you moved in. You do have to apply within that first year of moving in, however, or you lose that opportunity. And it's also important to point out that the immediate resident homestead exemption is generally good for new homes or homes where the previous owner did not have exemptions, say maybe it was a rental home or something. If the previous owner, if you buy a home that was already lived in, if the previous owner did have exemptions, then you will most likely benefit from those exemptions that were already on the home. And then that next year, once you apply for your exemptions, then those kick in based on your qualifications, not the qualifications of the previous owner. I will point out that sometimes you can have a nice little break with this immediate homestead exemption, particularly if you're in your 30s or 40s or even 20s and you buy a home and it was previously lived in by someone who had an over 65 exemption and they'd had it for a number of years. Well, you're going to really make out that year in terms of what you pay in property taxes. But again, come that following year, then you're going to be, you will be taxed based on the exemptions that you qualify for. So it's important to keep that in mind. So over 65 and disability exemption. Some people tend to think tend to overlook this one. Please don't, because once you turn over 65 or you become disabled, you have a whole new set of benefits that are available to you. and you qualify for those the entire year that you turn 65. So even if your birthday is December 30th of this year, you're going to get that all of those disability exemptions for this year. It is important to remember that we do ask that if you are turning 65 that year, that you wait until at least a month or two before you turn 65 to apply for those exemptions, so that we would not have to go back and verify those again in a few months. So it's important that you do that, that you do it within that 2-month or so window. The disability exemption is pretty much the same as the over 65 exemption, and you would qualify for that the entire year that you become eligible to receive those disability payments under Social Security, the Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance Act, or some people may not be receiving Social Security, in which case, in order to apply for a disability exemption, we require that that your physician sends in a statement verifying that you are disabled and eligible for those exemptions. That physician statement can actually be found on our website, on our landing page under forms. So what are the additional benefits for that exemption? They are basically the year that you turn 65, your school taxes freeze, or ceiling, or limitation. There's several terms, but basically what it means is that your school taxes are frozen at that amount going forward. Now, can they change? Yes, they can if you were to move, or you were to make some substantial improvements to the property, like you added some square footage to the home, you built something like a swimming pool or tennis court in the backyard. Well, that's going to increase your value. So what happens there is your value may be reset, and then it is frozen at that new amount based on the based on the value added because of those changes. But as long as you make no changes, it's going to stay the same. It can go down if the property value in your area falls. But hopefully it keeps rising, because home ownership is also an investment, right? So it will stay the same. So you're also eligible for certain things called like a tax deferral, as well as being able to pay taxes in installments without penalties. Vicky's going to talk a little bit more about those in just a moment. But you also maintain your general resident homestead exemptions. So the over 55 surviving spouse just simply means that if as a couple, one of the partners turned 65 before the other, and therefore the property, you became eligible for that over 65 exemption, that if that person were to pass away, as long as the surviving spouse is at least 55 years of age on the date of the spouse passed away, they will maintain all of those exemptions. It's an important thing to remember. You may want to just contact HCAT, make sure that that information is in our records, but that if you're over 55, then you would maintain, and your spouse passes away, you can maintain those over 65 exemptions. And that, of course, means the school tax ceiling and all the other benefits like tax deferrals and being able to pay taxes in installments without penalties. So another important piece of information as it relates to exemptions is something called the heirship exemption. And I want to dive into that a little bit and explain it. And I'm so glad that Tawana is on the call line as well, because a lot of times we have additional questions about that, which the folks in our exemptions department will be more than happy to answer, because this is an important piece of information, particularly for people living in some of the more mature neighborhoods and where heirship property has passed along from a deceased relative. There may not be a clear title, but the person living in the home, obviously, perhaps a sibling, a child of the deceased person, is going to be very interested in. So heirship property refers to land or those homes that are passed down through generations and they've never cleared up. Title hasn't been passed on. It doesn't have a clear, updated title, which often happens when parents don't want to specify one kid or the other leaving their property to. So there may be multiple heirs that are sharing ownership of that property. Now, in the past, typically, if there is, say, four siblings who have interest in ownership interest in that property, well, the person who's been living there could only paying the taxes may only have been able to receive a 25% exemption. In other words, 25% of what the exemption offered because they only had 1/4 interest in the property. However, there's a process that you can go through if you've been living in the property that will allow you as the one person in the home to get that full exemption because they're paying the taxes on it. So that's something that you want to look into if you are in an heirship situation where you don't own the property outright. You have other siblings or relatives that are part owners. So let's dig into that a little bit more. On our exemption application, which is available online, there is a portion of it that you would fill out that kind of triggers you providing this information about heirship. The section 3 of the homestead exemption, what we have highlighted here, you answer that question: is the property for which this application submitted an heir property? And if you're going to check yes, do other heir property owners occupy the property? Yes. Then that requires that's when you would provide some additional information, and that includes things that you see listed here that you would include with your application. Again, I do encourage you, if you have any questions about it, to please feel free to call HCAD and ask to speak to someone in our exemptions department, and they will be more than happy to sort of walk you through it. So how do you apply for exemptions? I did want to mention too, I don't think I have it on this slide presentation, but there are also a number of exemptions for which our veterans are eligible for. If you know, or if you are a veteran and you're interested in applying for, seeing what you might be eligible for, or for applying for those exemptions, you can call us. We do, or email us, and we do have a specific hotline, if you will, for veterans who need that sort of information. So feel free to give us a call or to email HCAD about any issues related to possible veterans benefits. So how do you apply for them? Simply, again, you can mail a paper form. We have those exemptions forms online as well. You can actually fill them out online and submit them. Just upload your driver's license or additional information along with it. Please do try to submit everything at once, because what happens is that if we don't receive all of the information, then that sort of delays the processing of your application, because we then have to send you a letter stating what we need, and then there's a certain time period for which we wait for that. And so it's important to sort of submit everything at once, so we can usually get that done within at least 30 to 60 days. Also, if you have any questions, there is a how-to video on our website, which you can actually listen to as you walk through filling out the application. That will help you. I did also want to mention to you, there is something that you, as a homeowner, you receive in addition to the annual value notice that you receive usually around March or April. You get one other piece of information a routine piece of information from HCAD if you have exemptions. And that is our annual exemptions checkup or confirmation card that we send to you. It's just a look, it's probably a white 4x6 postcard. And it basically lists the exemptions that are currently on the property. And as long as nothing has changed, fine, you can throw that exemptions card in the drawer somewhere. If you don't recall receiving one and you have exemptions, then you may want to contact HCAD because those typically are not forwarded. They cannot be forwarded. If the post office is not able to deliver them, then they will come back to HCAD. And we all know post office, God bless them. Sometimes that information, the mail doesn't always get to where it needs to be. So if you don't recall receiving it, give us a call because we don't want those exemptions to fall off. And they possibly could if that card is returned. So this is what our website looks like, and that's at www.hcad.org. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of useful information on it. On that second blue line at the top where you see property search, that's something you can always go out on our website and check your exemption status. There's also, anyway, we always have job openings. I will throw that out there as well. And then there are certain, and I think the fifth or the sixth one over is the forms, which you can click on and download pretty much all of our forms are downloadable. And most of them, many of the popular ones at least, are fillable online. So you can just fill it out and turn it in that way. We also have a lot of other helpful information. I mentioned to you about videos that you can watch that talk about various property tax topics. I also want to mention it is that time of year when we are seeking applicants for the Appraisal Review Board. So that information, the application is also available on our website if anyone is interested in perhaps checking out what it means to be an Appraisal Review Board member. Those are simply homeowners like yourselves that live in Harris County who sit in panels. They do receive training from the state and they sit in those panels. And these are the folks who make the final decision based on your evidence, based on HCAD's evidence of what sort of value solution you would be able to, any sort of reduction that you might get on your property taxes for the year. That is through the Appraisal Review Board. And again, like I said, there's a lot more helpful information. And this is also where you would go starting generally in early March to find out what our property tax protest workshop series, what the dates are, where the locations are, so that you can plan to come to one of them. This is our contact information if you need that. And we are out here on the Northwest Freeway at the Hollister-Tidwell exit. You can call us on our general phone number, although keep in mind certain times of the year it may be harder to get us, particularly before the protest deadline. And again, generally sometimes in November and December once the tax bills go out. Our website information, we also have several online sites where you can send us email. The contact us form is available, as well as currently, although it may be going away soon, is a help@hcad.org email box where you can just send your information. The hcad.org contact us form allows you to fill out additional information so that we can sort of judge specifically on which department needs to answer your question. Help@HCAD does the same, but it's done. We're sort of, in some cases, we may have to contact you again to kind of make sure we know what you may not have been as specific in that email. So keep in mind, those are the two online digital ways that you can contact us. And that is my presentation for today. I certainly appreciate you all listening. And again, we're here to answer any questions that we can. If we can't get an answer, we don't have an answer for you today, then we can certainly take that question to one of our content experts here at HCAT and get an answer for you. So thank you very much. And I am now going to turn it over to the tax office that will talk a little bit more about. We work in tandem, but they sort of are the collections and payments processing, calculating part of the property tax equation. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Miss Mabel. Ms. Vicki, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You go right ahead. I see that there are a couple questions in there, but we'll get to the questions that are in the chat in just a bit.
Okay. Does my screen look okay?
Yes, ma'am. You can go ahead and put it in presentation mode.
Oh,
Okay, from the beginning.
okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so
If you
beginning.
And I know you guys you usually work on two screens, so I'm not sure how your screens display.
Oh, okay. Are you seeing my screen or are you seeing both of my screen?
We're seeing the PowerPoint
Oh, okay. Let me go
view.
back. Sorry. Okay, so
If you can't find it, just go to the PowerPoint and then just hit the arrow button down to transition. We won't worry about putting it in slideshow mode.
okay. I think let me try to let me do it again. Let me get out. Okay, so
Okay, now you're good.
okay, is it good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that, guys. Again, my name is Vicki Fetsura. I'm with the tax office of Miss Annette Ramirez. So I will be your presenter for the tax office. Beginning of this year, Miss Annette Ramirez is our newly elected tax assessor. A little bit something about Miss Ramirez is that she previously served as legal counsel for Aldine Independent School District for over 23 years. She oversees the district's in-house property tax collection, litigation, and various real estate matters. Ms. Ramirez attended Texas A&M University at Galveston and earned her law degree from South Texas College of Law. She was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, to Mexican immigrants. She is the youngest of three daughters and proud mother to three children. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So the responsibility for the Harris County Tax Office is that we collect property taxes for over 80 jurisdictions or tax units in Harris County, along with other special taxes and fees. We also register vehicles, process title transfer, and provide other motor services. We also maintain voter roll and register voters. Property tax overview. So the Harris County Tax Office maintain approximately 1.7 million tax accounts. We collect more than $8 billion in property taxes. We disperse these funds to more than 80 taxing jurisdictions, which includes Harris County, Houston ISD, City of Houston, Harris County Flood Control District. There's been some recent property tax law that's coming up in November election. These changes could reduce your property taxes if approved by voters. Again, that election is coming up November 4th. If you're not sure what's going to be on your ballot, you can go to www.harrisvotes.com and you can take a look at your sample ballot. But the Proposition 13 that's coming up, that's going to be on the Harris County ballot, pertains to the school tax. So for the general homestead exemption, the exemption will increase currently at $100,000 to $140,000. Pertaining to the over 65 or disabled homestead exemption, that increase will be from 10,000 to 60,000, and that's Proposition 11. It will also expand exemption qualification for survivor spouse of veterans whose death was due to a service-connected condition. And if you want to look more into that, that is Proposition 7. The changes will also give temporary exemption for improvement to resident homestead that was destroyed by fire. Again, that's Proposition 10. And then this change includes the business personal property exemption, which would increase exemption to 125,000. So again, if you want to look more into it, that's Proposition 9. How to calculate your tax bill. We take the taxable value, which is determined by the appraisal district. We multiply that by the tax rate, which is set by the taxing jurisdiction. And of course, we generate the bill. This is just an example of how your tax bill would look like. It will have your, certified name, the address. It will list each jurisdiction that you're being assessed. It will give you the taxable value, the rates, and the exemption amount. And at the bottom of the bill, there's a coupon, and there's a message to taxpayer. This is mainly for some homeowners that's age 65 or older, or they have a disability, or if they're a veteran, there's extra benefit or extra exemption that's available to them. And then, of course, it has the mailing address that you would, put in the mail and mail to us. So if you have any question, please, let us know. Especially if your mailing address is incorrect, you would have to update that with HCAD, or if the certified owner's name is incorrect, please let us know that as well. We will refer you to HCAD, of course, because HCAD is the office that's going to update that information. This slide is an example of a homestead exemption based on an average appraised value of $342,000. So Harris County allows 20% homestead exemption, and then an additional $320,000 value exemption for property owner age 65 and older, and disabled homeowner exemption. So the first bill is without any exemption. So if there's no exemption on the property and based on the $342,000 home, your bill is going to be around $7,155. If you have a homestead exemption with that 20% exemption amount, your bill is going to be around $4,866, so saving you $2,289. Now, again, if you're a homeowner that's 65 and older, or a disabled homeowner, you would be allowed that additional $320,000 exemption value, which the bill will be coming out approximately $1,591 with a saving of $5,564. Also, with the over 60, the 65 and disabled exemption, there's also tax limitation, which May will explain a little bit about it. It's also known as tax ceiling or tax freeze. Again, it limits the increases of taxes for school and some taxing jurisdiction, but not on all property taxes. Again, it applies to the homestead property with homeowner that's age 65 and older or disabled. This tax deferral exemption is also an additional benefit to the property owner that's age 65 or older, disabled homeowner, or disabled veterans. So the purpose of a tax deferral is for homeowners if they choose to postpone their tax payment, which will prevent foreclosure. It will still accrue the 5% interest per year on unpaid balances, but there's no penalty. The deferral will end upon the sale or change in property ownership on the 181 day that the deferral ended. Again, the tax deferral only delay the tax payment. It will not cancel out the taxes. To apply, you would need to complete a tax deferral affidavit, and you can find that form from HCAT. There's an important note. If you have a mortgage on your property and if you're interested in the tax deferral exemption, please consult with your mortgage company before submitting your tax deferral request, because most mortgage companies do not recognize this exemption, or they do not allow you to have unpaid balances on your tax due to, the financing of the property. We also have quarterly payment plan. The quarterly payment plan is only applied to, again, for approved exemption status. That's homeowner age 65 and over, disabled homeowner, disabled veteran, or surviving spouse. There's no interest if the 4 quarterly payments are paid timely. Again, this is going to be on all the taxes will be paid in full if once you meet all the 4 equal payments. The first payment will be due by the end of January, the second by March, third by May, and of course the last payment will be by July. We also have flexible payment agreements or payment plans for other homeowners that does not have the over 65 or the disabled exemption. So these payment plans are available to homestead, residential homestead, and non-homestead. We do have flexible payment period from 12 to 36 months. You can use this as a financial planning tool. The balance can be paid off early without any additional fees. Setting up a payment plan will avoid collection, it will avoid foreclosure, and you can start requesting payment plan as early as February 1. And of course, there's no attorney's fees if the contract begins before the law firm start collection, which is on July 1. These are the type of, again, payment plans that we have. It's a homestead plan and other payment agreement or payment plan. On the homestead, of course, it has to be your primary residence, and then non-resident can be like your rental property, multiple property. It could be a business account. It could be commercial account. It could be personal property. The plan that we have for homestead is from 12 to 36 months. On the other non-residents, it will be 12 months. And the way the term works is that on the homestead property, it will be the additional penalty month. So for an example, if you start the payment plan in February, it will be 6%. The 6% penalty will be locked in. However, the 1% interest will still accrue every month until the balance is paid off. The good thing about this is that everything, your payment, your penalty, your interest will be calculated into your monthly payment depending on the term that you choose. So if you choose 12 months, once you make all your 12 months timely, then the full balance will be paid in full. Unfortunately, on the non-homestead property, it will still accrue the penalty and interest every month like it normally would. But again, because we calculate the fees into your payment, you will be pay off your taxes by the end of the 12 months because that's all the term that we have. So for the plan type, it's going to be for both non-homestead and for homestead, it's going to be for the current and prior tax years. And the monthly payment will be due by the end of each month for both plans. These are the payment options that we currently have. You can make your full or partial payment on the current and prior year by making that online, by mail, or in person. Unfortunately, if you make your payment by phone, it would be only towards the current year. So you have prior tax year, you would just need to let us know, to correct your payment by moving it from the wrong year to the correct year. There is a convenient fees on credit card and debit card that is 2.45% of the amount of your payment. If you use a check or e-check, those are free. And of course, cash is only accepted at our branch. That concludes the presentation from the tax office. If you have any question or you need further assistance, you can visit our website, hctax.net. You can give us a call, 713-274-8000, or you can email us your question, tax.office@hctx.net. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Miss Vicky. I am going to go over some of the questions that were in the chat here. And I know some of them were already answered by other assistants. And please bear with me. I'm having to use a different device than what I would typically use. So I'm trying to go back without deleting myself from removing myself from this meeting. So uh, please, okay, now this is for Miss Mabel. Please explain how the logic of why HCAD would value a flooded home in a floodway more than an equal house in the same neighborhood that is not in a floodway and has never flooded. This is consistent treatment in my neighborhood. So that would be Miss Tawana.
That would actually be a question for, and I'm sorry, that would actually be a question for one of our appraisers. I'm trying to see whether or not if we're going to have one of the appraisers hop in the chat, or whether or not if we would just go ahead and refer them over to our customer service, I'm sorry, over to information and assistance to give them a call, which is the telephone number that I left in the chat, which is 713-957-7800. I'm able to answer questions about exemptions, but as far as for like
Oh, okay.
the hearings and things of that nature, I can't, I don't attend hearings, so I wouldn't be able to completely explain it, and
Gotcha.
I don't want to give them the incorrect information.
And I'll also add, that was me, an attempt to at least give some information about that, because I know that's been I've heard that frequent complaint before. And again, I can't speak for their particular property, but I will say that because of the increased ride that Harris County has been on, in some cases, those homes that it doesn't matter if they've been in a floodway, because of the hot market, those values have continued to stay the same or increase. And that's something I would encourage that person to protest if they have additional information or comparable sales that show that other similar homes are being sold at a lower value, or maybe they have unresolved repair issues from those floods, and that's something they're going to want to bring that we would not know about that are inside the house. That's definitely something they want to bring to HCAD's attention by filing a protest.
Okay. Another question here. The other day, I saw a parked car with a Harris County Appraisal District sign on it near my house. I asked what they were doing. I was told they aren't appraising the property, only asking homes if the property is still the same as listed with the appraisal district, or has it changed? Um, do you do that, or is there probably something fishy going on? Is that what they generally do?
Um,
I'm sorry, I was talking with my mute on. I do know from experience that our appraisers do go out to do field checks periodically, so that is a possibility, and definitely so if they have because we have what is it, the thing that sticks to your car. We have those specifically for our appraisers when they're out doing field checks.
In some cases, it may have been because a permit was pulled for some possible improvements in the home, or adding square footage or something. So yeah, they would do physical field checks. And then of course, this time of the year, they are out there appraising, reviewing for next year's valuation process as well. So this time of year in particular, you're subject to see HCAD folks out. In a lot of cases, they're going to have on their jackets as well. They like to wear those just to make sure that if in case you don't see the car, you can see what they're wearing, that they're HCAD appraisers.
Okay. What is the difference between the tax deferral and a tax freeze?
A tax deferral defers the amount due for your tax bill. You will not incur penalties, but you will accrue interest at 5% of the past due amount. You may take with the deferral, you can make the payments, as you have the ability to. Um, as far as a tax freeze is specifically for the school district. The year that a property owner turns 65 and that exemption has been applied to their account, or if they're disabled and that exemption has been applied to their account, then the school district sets what is called either a freeze or a ceiling, which is an amount that your school tax bill cannot go over. Now, that's only for the school district. All of the other taxing jurisdictions will change as far as for what it based on what your appraised value is. But and that stays on the property until either the property owner moves or something else happens, like if they pass away or something of that nature and they don't leave like a surviving spouse.
Okay. Another question here. Please explain what we should expect at an ARB hearing. For the past 5 years, despite the requirements to upload documents, they have not seen they have not seen them and do not look at them whether it is in person or online. Do they also have been sliding or siding with the appraiser without discussion or counter questions to the taxpayer? Our voice is not proof is our voice and proof is not being considered.
Is that one that you have? I don't see it.
Um,
It's in the
yeah,
chat.
it's in the
Oh,
chat.
okay. I don't see that. So it's important to keep in mind that the appraisal review board is an independent board from HCAT, and if you have issues with whatever your hearing results were, you are allowed you have the option to go to contact our taxpayer liaison, who can look into issues where you feel like that it was mishandled by the appraisal review board. You also have the option, of course, for arbitration, but we wouldn't want to necessarily have you go through that. That's where you have to start spending, where expenses are incurred. But I encourage that person, if they feel like their hearing was mishandled, that they would go to the taxpayer liaison.
And how do they reach that
Else you
person?
want to add, Tawana?
I'm sorry.
Is there anything else you would like to add? I don't see that question, but it sounds like they don't feel like they had a fair hearing with the
But
review
no,
board.
ma'am, I have nothing to add to that.
And
That's
so I
pretty
would,
much where we would
so
refer them.
your 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 uh your option there, I would say, is to contact the taxpayer liaison office. This particular person does not work for HCAT either. They work for the HCAT board, and they're responsible for looking into those sorts of issues. And that information is available on our website too.
Okay. Uh, I believe those were all the questions that were in the chat. I was trying to use another device to try to download the questions that I had that were in advance. I know I do recall seeing one of the questions about the heirship exemption. If there are multiple heirs for a property, but only one of the heirs is actually living there, and they are also over the age of 65,
Mhm.
are they only getting an heirship exemption, or is that different? Is that a different amount from an over 65 exemption, or is the airship and the over 65, would it be the same for this person since they are over 65?
It's the same exemption. It's just how we enter the information in the system, and the fact that we have
Okay.
the documentation that proves that they're an heir, which will allow them to obtain the exemption at 100% instead of that either 50% that they own, or that that they own, or the 33%. It just what happens is when we enter the information in the system, we'll make sure that we put that this is an heir property, so that way we have the justification of giving them that 100%.
Okay. Good deal. I believe that is all. And I do apologize. I'm again more technical difficulties. I can't get into where there were other questions that may have been sent in. So I do apologize. If it's not, if any of the questions that were sent in are different from what's already been covered, I'll make sure that I'll include that on an email and I'll send it to you guys so that you guys can reach out to them and address those particular questions. But I don't have any other questions at all here.
Mia,
As
I,
far as
I have one thing that came to mind as a result of the
yes,
last question.
yes,
And
ma'am.
if there are, how are you guys doing? You're doing a great job, by the way, before I jump all
Good,
in.
good, good.
I had a question regarding that. If you have multiple heirs, and it sounds like each heir is responsible for their particular percentage of the taxes, one heir lives in the home.
Mhm.
How are the other heirs actually billed? How does that work?
There's on, oh, well, as far as for the exemption portion of it, if there's one person that lives there, then we would place that exemption on their account. As far as for the tax bill itself going out, the tax office is just going to send out one tax bill per year, if I'm not
Yeah, that's what I
mistaken.
thought. That's what I thought.
So they would just
Okay.
split it amongst
Well,
themselves.
we would send it to the certified name that's listed on the property, or on the property. So it may still have the name or the estate name, and then it'll
Miss
have that
Miss
heir.
Vicky, is your I don't know if your mic is too loud or if you're on the phone or have two different devices open, but it's really loud, kind of
Oh,
screeching.
okay. How's this?
It's the
Still,
same.
It's still this. I'm not sure. I'm using the office laptop because my desktop doesn't. I mean, I can't do anything on my. That's the reason why I'm so lost using somebody else's. But you said it's loud?
But you're not using the phone either.
No,
You're not, no. Usually you get that noise, that feedback when
like a
it's
back row.
a
Oh,
microphone.
like a.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure, but okay,
And you were
but
clear a while ago.
yeah.
okay. Is it better or is it still loud?
It's still the
No,
same.
it's still the
But go
same.
go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying that the bill that we generate is going to go out to the name and the mailing address that's listed, with HCAT. So whatever name and mailing address that's listed on the tax roll, that's where the tax bill is going to go. And then from there, it will be, I guess, up to the heir how they want to split the tax bill. But again, you're right. We only send out one tax bill, and it goes, to the name of that person that's listed on the tax roll.
Got it.
And
Okay. Thank you.
So so
just
it's
Mhm.
so
add,
it's all it's almost beneficial if the one person is over 65 and they're getting the exemption, and if that lessens the bill or even eliminates the bill altogether, then that's better for the other heirs. Then there's nothing to split.
right. And
Right.
I just like to
Okay.
add that it's important. This particular benefit is important for a lot of people and people to understand. It allows property. So much property is lost when heirs and siblings are fighting over who's gonna pay and who's gonna do this or whatever. And having that heirship exemption for whomever is living in the home, uh, it doesn't affect the ownership rights of any of the other siblings. It just
Right.
gives that person a break, because more than likely they're the ones paying the taxes and keeping the property in the family. So this is an opportunity really for the entire family to benefit if it is generational property.
That makes sense. Thank
Okay. I still can't get into my system, so I believe we are just gonna kind of go from here. And again, I do apologize. I can't get back to the social media page or anything to see if there are other questions. So if there are, again, I will definitely generate a correspondence and send it out to you guys so that you are able to address those issues. But if there are no other questions, I do believe that that's about it. Tomorrow we have our foreclosure presentation, part of our foreclosure series, and that was going to be about mortgage foreclosures for regular home mortgages, uh, home equity lines of credits, and reverse mortgage foreclosures. So if you need more information about your rights in that regards and what the process for foreclosure for any of those types of mortgages, then that will be covered tomorrow by a representative from Lone Star Legal Aid. So definitely join us for that. I'm finalizing our calendar for the month of November, so that'll probably go out with the email that I send out to you guys as well. But otherwise, be on the lookout for our November schedules that are coming up. Remind everybody about early voting has started, and voting is on November 4th. Voting day, election day is November 4th,
Mhm.
and encouraging, is it November 4th? Yes, Tuesday, November 4th, and encouraging everybody to get out to the polls and let your voice be heard. So, with that being said, I hope you all received the information that you needed to receive today as you attended this presentation. This is coming into November, so we are also trying to plan and schedule for 2026. So, if there are any presentations that we don't currently offer that you all may be interested in, then please reach out to us and let us know so that we can keep those, take those other topics into consideration as we are planning for 2026. So, all right. Thank y'all very much. Hope y'all have a wonderful remainder of your day. You take care of yourselves. You all stay safe, and we will see y'all next time. Miss Vicky, thank you very much. You did a wonderful
Yeah,
job. So
thank
don't be
you.
nervous. Thank you, Miss Tawana and Miss
You're
Mabel.
welcome.
Thank y'all.
I
All
hope you
right.
all
Y'all
have a
have a
good
wonderful
day.
day. All
Bye.
right.
Bye bye.